Guys, what's up? My name is Karis. Welcome to Strength in Flux, all about abs. Is that a buzzy title? Yes, because everyone's fucking obsessed with abs. And at the same time, no one really understands what it takes to get them other than the starvation aspect. It's true, depending on your genetics. Also, wrap your head around the fact that most of the people that you see in this industry take a lot of performance enhancing drugs, either legal ones or not illegal ones. They have, prescriptions and shit like that. And I know people are like all mad about it when I call that out, but it's the fucking truth. However, with PEDs, you're still, like, if I took a bunch of steroids, I'm not gonna suddenly qualify for the Olympics. If you carry more body fat on the top half of your body, around your abdomen, for example, if you take steroids, are you gonna get a six pack? No. So your genetics also will determine even how effective some of like steroids are. That's why you see guys with like big upper bodies and teeny tiny little calves, because genetically they just don't develop calves. Anyway, I always think that's really important to get out in the open right away in the conversation about abs. I don't personally take steroids. My hormones have been fucking over my life my entire life, so I don't want to fuck with it. I've had bad skin before, like cystic acne, and I've seen some girls, yeah, that's all you. I'll fucking take some extra body fat and mediocre performance. Anyway, what Strength in Flux is about. I made one video about this so long ago when Lux first opened, like 2.5 months ago. It's kind of crazy how time flies. And what it's about is it's really educating you about why I do Pilates in addition to strength training. Those are not two individual things, even though some usually guys who want to give me business advice, even though I've been in the industry for 10 years, want to tell me about how to, women don't want to see weights, but you can lure them in with Pilates, and guys don't want to see Pilates because that's for fucking gay boys. Yeah, we don't do it that way. Everybody that comes in here does both, because both have their place. And it's something that's been really frustrating to run into my entire career, and even the entire time that I've been doing Pilates and weight training, is that there is a lot of stupidity on both sides, and I'm bringing it together. So stupidity comes in two forms. Well, it comes in so many forms in this industry, but two really annoying forms to me. And the one is willful ignorance. So trainers, coaches, whatever the fuck they want to call themselves, who refuse to really take their career seriously and deepen their understanding of the human body and movement, and branch out and try to get a lot of different ideas so that they can help more people. They get their little first certification and they're done. And then the other side is dogmatic willful ignorance. And that's where it's like, one size fits all, this is the way to go. You'll find in both Pilates and weight training, in both. So you'll have Pilates people who are under the impression that weight training is harmful, that it will hurt you, all complete nonsense. And then in weight training, that Pilates is gay, and that it's just for, chicks who don't really want to lift weights, which is true. There's a lot of women who gravitate towards that for that reason, usually because of abs. Here's the thing that you got to understand. Both need Pilates. They need it in a different way. Both need weight training, and they need it in a different way. So this isn't a Pilates studio. I offer Pilates here, but Pilates isn't like my main specialty. If someone was wanting strictly Pilates, I'd be like, I know some really talented Pilates instructors who would, take you on. I would say they're foolish, but whatever, I'd like them to make that decision on their own. And then in weight training, that's where I apply a lot of the Pilates that I do. And why? Because in weight trainers, right, or lifters, right, especially power lifters and stuff, especially because that's my world, they're so stiff, right? And so they're like fucking cranking on it, their ankles and shit, like, oh, my ankles are so tight, I have shitty ankle mobility. And they don't really understand why the ankle is tight. They don't really care. They just want it to feel good for, you know, a half hour or whatever that they're trying to lift, and then go on with their merry way and piss off their ankle and do that same cycle, instead of trying to look deeper into the reason why the ankle is tight and then try to prevent that from happening in the first place. So why is this called All About Abs if I'm talking about all this different shit? Because your abs are your spine, right? And your spine is what is such a hot topic, especially in the strength training world. So in dogma, like especially people who just like jerk off to medical science, hey, I'm pro science, but at the end of the day, science evolves, information evolves. We're constantly making new discoveries, and I'm considered an alternative practitioner because of the way that I approach pain, science's attitude towards me and what I do, because a lot of it isn't proven. But here's the thing. When you see articles about people, like I just saw this one, someone just sent this to me, about how it's okay to round the spine under load. Do I agree with that? Well, obviously, because at a certain point that's going to happen. Here's the problem. When you have someone strolling into a group class because, I mean, who's got the time for personal training? I just want to get my deadlifts in and then get on with my merry way and wonder why my back hurts constantly, or my neck, or whatever the fuck else. When you see elite lifters rounding their back, they're not doing all of their warm-up sets like this. That's a maximal load. Maximal load is obviously going to vary so much depending on, Lola, this feels really strongly about this too, you guys. Maximal load is going to depend on the individual, right? But do you suppose that those elite lifters learned how to deadlift like that? Of fucking course not. Of course, they're trying to get their spine as neutral as possible and as strong as possible in that neutral position. But then, of course, at some point, there's going to be some spinal flexion, especially if someone already has kind of excessive flexion in their spine. So, you know, the warriors like, oh, your spine is rounding, you're gonna destroy your back. They're fucking idiots. Well, they're not even willfully ignorant. They're just fucking stupid, because a lot of them aren't even trainers. They like learned in their garage and think that they fucking have all the answers. They're the mansplainers you see a lot on You Look Like a Man. So, do I allow my clients to round their back when they're deadlifting? I mean, we try to avoid it. Of course we do, because it's not optimal. We want to get the muscles around the spine strong to hold your body in a neutral position. But at maximal loads, that's going to kind of go to shit a little bit. And if it does, it's not the end of the world, because you haven't, it's a repetitive, right? That like wear and tear that really disrupts the body. The other thing too is, like I said, some people just naturally have more flexion in their upper back. People like Michael Phelps, for example, you know, he's doing okay. I don't think we need to be like, sit down and address his kyphosis. He's got a really rounded upper back, but it's also one of the reasons why he's such an amazing swimmer. That's another one of those things that's so stupid. It's like people are like, oh, you gotta fix your kyphosis. And it's usually idiot trainers who have like one certification under their belt and they learn that word, and then they start making like, IGTVs or whatever about the dangers of something. Yes, I'm addressing someone directly because she's fucking stupid. Just to get you there. So, you know, you have to remember that everyone is on a spectrum, and I've addressed that before, that I have a lot of anterior tilt. I have a deeper curve in my lumbar spine than is favorable, right? But what do I do when I deadlift? I do everything in my power, warming up or kettlebell swing or whatever the fuck else, to try to get my pelvis and my spine as neutral as possible. And as you can see, when I do that, look how much better immediately my abdominals look, right? Immediately, they look so much different. Look at the difference in my spine, right? See how deep, right? And so like contracted it is right here. Now, if I just move my pelvis to a neutral position, look how much smoother it is back there, how much more natural. So if you see, right, pubic bone and hip bones here when I'm standing, they're on the same vertical plane. When those hip bones are forward, I'm in an anterior tilt of my pelvis, and I have excessive extension here in my lumbar spine now because I've left neutral. Now, if I go the opposite direction here, I'm in a posterior tilt, so my pubic bone is now forward of my hip bones. Now you can see that I'm in, not a lot of it, but some lumbar flexion. And that also took me into a more thoracic flexion. Now, I can leave neutral spine and stay in neutral pelvis, but if I leave neutral pelvis, I won't be in neutral spine because of the way that the pelvis acts on the lower back. So who gives a fuck about this? If you have back pain, you should give a huge fuck about it. If you pee your pants when you deadlift, you should give a huge fuck about it. And if you want nice abs, you should give a fuck about it. Because most of the ab work that people do is totally counterproductive. Swinging the legs around and all that. Here's the thing about the abs. Their main job, and the posterior chain for Little Miss cautionary tale about Pilates, the main things they do is stabilize you. People have this idea, especially people who don't have an education and don't know what they're talking about, they have this idea of muscles and movement, right? Of what the muscle does. What they neglect to realize is that it's muscles that stabilize that are potentially the most important. And that's why Pilates is so important. Because people use their quads excessively and like hip flexors, right? To stabilize their pelvis. Their hamstrings also, that's why they're always so chronically tight. They use their shoulders excessively instead of their ability to move their thoracic spine. And that's why all those extremities in particular hurt. So how do you fix that? You get over yourself and learn how to hold your body in the right position, and in a lot of ways, how to feel when those more big superficial muscles kick on versus those deeper stabilizing muscles. And what does that take? A whole fuck ton of focus. A painful amount of focus. I always use the like the scene in Forgetting Sarah Marshall where Paul Rudd, the surf instructor, is what a gift to humanity Paul Rudd is, where he's trying to teach the guy how to learn how to surf, and he's like, no man, do less, do less, do less. And then eventually the guy just like doesn't do anything, and he's like, no, you're gonna have to do more than that. That's pretty much what Pilates is, at least the way that I teach it. Because what people do is when I tell them to scoop their pelvis in, right, and try not to affect their thoracic spine, they can't do it. They have to use their legs or they have to use their shoulders in order to do that. Now, if you're under a bar in your back squat, and I tell you that you need to pull your hips under the bar a little bit more, you can see how all that pressure would go right into the lower back. People will often do this to make that happen. And if you see here too, if I did that and I have a bar on my back, how might that feel on my shoulders, right? So a lot of the problems that come up in people's shoulders, knees, hips is actually an inability to move your spine and your pelvis independent of the rest of your body, the ability to stabilize. So I'm just gonna leave you with this, those of you who've continued to watch, because this is gonna be a series even if I'm the only one watching, god damn it. So what I mean is here on the floor, you can see if I tell someone to pull their pelvis down into a posterior tilt, really using the pelvic floor, I don't have time to get into that right now. You see how like hollowed out I am here? So people can't do that without doing this or this. And you see here now I'm like bulged up. And yeah, I'm using a combination of my hip flexors and rectus abdominis, the six-pack muscle, and that bulges out. So let me ask you this. When you develop your bicep muscle, what does it do? It bulges. Do you think your hip flexors and rectus abdominis are any different? So what about those muscles under fat? They will actually make your abdomen stick out more. And that's because you're using those superficial muscles. So when people are critical of Pilates, it's probably because they had a bad back, went to some general class, and did a bunch of crunches with probably poor instruction or a class too big for even a good instructor to be able to manage. And then they wonder why their fucking back hurts. It's like, oh, all those crunches. Yeah, if you're using your transverse abdominis and your pelvic floor and you're able to stabilize your pelvis, honey, that is posterior chain, including your hamstrings. So learn about it. I know it's a bummer to learn, what a bummer, but you gotta learn about it. It's the only way that you can empower yourself and actually feel good doing the things that you love. I'm Karis, this is Strength and Flux.